Stand by. We're going live. We're going live. 10, 9, going live. 7, 6, 5, going live. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome to 10 Seconds to Air. I'm Alita Guillen. Today we are getting into the metaverse, specifically Bitcoin, blockchain, and NFTs, all words that keep swirling around. Madonna is now selling NFTs. Matt Damon and Steph Curry are doing commercials about crypto. So it seems it is here to stay. So I thought this would be a good time to lay down a simple understanding of this crazy world. This decentralized system first came on the scene in 2009. Blockchain and Bitcoin quietly gained traction for over a decade until 2021, when an artist by the name of Beeple sold a virtual piece of art, an NFT, a non-fungible token, for $69 million. And now many of us are wondering, should I invest in cryptocurrency, buy an NFT, or is this just some Ponzi scheme that will be gone in a few years? Well, my guest today is here to help us answer those questions. Sarah Odenkirk is a fine art lawyer and a partner at the LA firm Cowan, Debates, Abrams, and Shepard. Sarah is an expert drafting contracts to buy and sell world-class art, and she is at the cutting edge of NFTs and fine art. Buckle up, everyone, because it is a lot and it can get bumpy. But Sarah is super smart, and I promise to ask some really basic questions so that we can all have a better understanding of this virtual world. Here is my conversation with NFT expert Sarah Odenkirk. Sarah, thank you so much for coming in to my little studio today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
You are. And you heard that intro. So are you bracing yourself now that you're going to explain all this and we're all going to understand it so simply?
Feeling a little bit of pressure with that super smart comment, but I'll do what I can.
You are super smart. You are super smart. Do not undercut yourself here. All right. Let's start off, though, with, low-hanging fruit. I'm going to ask you the question of 10 seconds to air. You are someone who works in a very high-pressure situation, often job, presentations, Zoom calls. What goes through your mind 10 seconds before air for you?
Well, it's funny you should ask. I actually did a podcast the other day, or a Zoom podcast the other day, where there was a 25-second countdown right before we went on air or went live. The most pressure I think I've ever felt.
Those 25 seconds?
Those 25 seconds, it was so long. But I think that what goes through my mind is about sort of trying to calm down a little bit and reminding myself that nobody else knows that I'm nervous.
Right. Nobody else knows. And they also don't know what you know. You are super smart.
It's interesting, and I think that this pertains to probably everybody, right? You have your area that you know something about, and you know it so well that you feel like everybody knows it, and you kind of forget what you know until you start talking to people and they start asking questions, which is what I imagine is going to happen here today.
We're going to dig it all out of you right now, and then everyone's going to go, ooh, she is super smart. How did you even become, you went to law school, but then how did you really get into the art world? Like, why did you pick that?
So that's a good question.
Still figuring that out?
Still figuring it out. No, actually, it's funny because I was very fortunate to have an art law class at my law school, which was really unusual at the time. Art law wasn't really that big of an area of practice when I went to law school and graduated. I did know that I really found the intellectual property issues interesting. I was very attracted to the art world. And I like being close to creative things. It was only years later that I realized that I actually, as much as I had tried to rebel from my parents who were in academia and to be, a lawyer, a business person making money, it's like, oh, actually, I didn't really fall that far from the tree. My father was a professor of rhetorical theory, and my mother was a puppeteer who also got her doctorate in aesthetic education. So I guess that together, that makes art law, and I didn't realize it until it was way too late. So much for rebelling.
Right. Well, and now you find yourself in this crazy art world. I also want to mention, you have this entertainment. You mentioned this puppeteer, this entertainment side, this putting it all together with the art world. Your husband also in the entertainment business, and your brother-in-law also in the entertainment business. Your husband was a writer for Simpsons for a long time. Did he connect any of this art world to his writing?
He did actually do an episode about Frank Gehry, and as part of that, there was a moment where he needed somebody from the art world, and so he used a good friend of ours who is a fantastic curator as sort of his muse for that particular image. But as much as I pushed, neither I nor the kids ever made it into any of the episodes.
No, nothing? Okay.
Maybe the next show.
Okay. And then your brother-in-law is Bob, Better Call Saul. Oh, love that show. Loved him on Breaking Bad. I know he's done a million things. And he just has a star, right? On the
he
Hollywood.
Does, yeah. Just got a Hollywood star.
All right. Congratulations to him. Should I ask, can you make an NFT out of that? Or was that are we going to?
That would probably raise some of the issues that we're going to talk about today. The first of which would be why.
Yeah. Okay. Why and who buys it?
Right.
All right. Well, let's back up a second before we get to that. And let's just get in with the business of this metaverse. Let's start with the crypto. What is crypto? And then that also brings me to blockchain. How does it work and how should we think of this? Because I think you explained it to me off microphone. And I love the way you explain it because for the first time, it wasn't someone explaining it at a dinner party who went all over the place and really doesn't understand a thing about it. It's like the first thing that comes out of their mouth sounds like it makes sense, and then it really doesn't. So please, lay out that cake for us.
Yeah. So it is a challenge. And even when you're talking to people in the business, like who are deep in the business, they have a hard time explaining it sometimes. I think more from the fact that they are, again, so deep into what they're doing and don't necessarily understand all the different pieces. So yes, it can be confusing even for those people who are, super involved in the whole metaverse. So let's actually start with blockchain.
Okay.
And I think the metaphor I used when we were speaking was a layer cake. And I really like to think of it that way. That was, for me, the easiest way to sort of envision, what this ecosystem looks like. So it started on blockchain. Blockchain is the bottom layer, and that is the system by which information is stored. Okay. On top of the blockchain is cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency relies on blockchain. That's where all the information about cryptocurrency lives, is on the blockchain. And then on top of that is NFTs. NFTs are digital tokens that are transacted using cryptocurrency, and they are registered on the blockchain. So they all relate to each other, but they are all different components of that system.
Okay. I want you to go just a step further because I was reading about this and it sort of opened my eyes to understand the blockchain also. I think of it like in a classroom, everyone has a book of grades, right? And you get an A. And so the blockchain is sort of, imagine all these people who have a ledger, who have a book that has all the grades of everyone in the class. And I go in and I want to erase one grade. Can't do that, right? Because that would mean that everyone in that chain, everyone in the room would have to erase, or I think it's something like 51% of it. It has to be, right? Explain that.
So there are securities issues that come up around there are many different kinds of blockchains. Mm-hmm. And those security issues do have to do with whether one person could gain a majority control. Because the idea here is decentralization. Mm-hmm. And that's really the core principle that underlies all these blockchains, is decentralizing information. Yeah. So putting that information in multiple locations. So you refer to this metaphor of the classroom at the grade books. And if you compare the idea of centralized information, meaning that the teacher would have one grade book that holds all the grades. Yeah. That's easier to change than having, as you mentioned,
the whole school
having having each their own grade books, and then it's much harder to change your grade if it's registered in different places and you don't even know where those places are.
Yeah.
So that's how the blockchain maintains security. But sure, if that's where the grade book metaphor maybe breaks down a little bit, you wouldn't be able to change 51% of those grades. But nevertheless, there are ways that the blockchain could be infiltrated and hacked. And of course, we're starting to see some of those holes appear, as we have different hacking issues and people having things stolen. I don't know if that's ultimately a problem with the blockchain itself or with the way in which people are using the technology.
Okay. Meaning that they're not being secure themselves on their end.
There are, yeah. I mean, the more recent hacking scandals have to do with things like phishing scams that work quite well over email.
Yeah.
And now they're being applied in this space as well, where they're getting people to reveal their information.
Oh, right.
So,
Okay.
In order to engage with the blockchain, whether it's in decentralized finance or DeFi, or whether it's in purchasing cryptocurrency for investment purposes, or whether it's engaging in the NFT business, you have to have a wallet. That wallet is something that lives on chain as well. And that's where you maintain your assets. It's a digital wallet, of course, not a physical wallet. But that's where some of the securities issues come up as well, right?
But that's where you're supposed to be able to be secure. But if you reveal some things, or you are messy with that, you can have issues.
It can go both ways, because when you open a wallet, you get a seed phrase, and that seed phrase is your password. So it's like 16 words long. It's your password to that wallet. If you lose that, there's no way of recovering.
Screwed.
Yep. No way of recovering it. As well, if you give it to somebody, they can rob you. So, those access passwords are really important.
Yeah.
And so what some people are doing instead of leaving the wallet online, which would be what's considered to be a hot wallet.
Yeah.
They're using hardware wallets. So downloading things and keeping it on a hardware wallet instead, which is a cold wallet and a bit more secure.
Okay. Whew, that sounds like another podcast.
I might have also just told you all that I know about that subject. So
okay, we'll find somebody else for that. All right. That's the security side of it. Okay, but before we get to the real NFTs and the art that we're going to get to, I also want to talk about the cryptocurrency now. So to buy some of these NFTs, you are still working in this world, this metaverse. You need to have Bitcoin or something like Bitcoin. How does Bitcoin work?
So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. But in the NFT space, the most used currency is Ethereum. So ETH is what you're going to hear a lot about, Ethereum. And then there are many other cryptocurrencies as well. Within, again, the NFT space, one of the issues that's come up has been this issue around environmental concerns. And this is something we could definitely spend a lot of time talking about, but we won't, because we've got a lot of other things.
Yep.
But just as sort of a very high-level explanation, the Ethereum blockchain is called a proof of work blockchain.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you for a second. You said, when I mentioned Bitcoin, you said, well, Ethereum. So is Ethereum money? I thought Ethereum was a blockchain.
It's both.
Oh.
Ethereum is a blockchain. It is also a currency.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Sure.
Okay.
And many of the blockchains also have currencies.
Okay.
So, and
how many blockchains are there?
A lot.
Oh, okay.
Over 1,000.
Okay.
Maybe even more than that.
Is there one that's everyone really uses that we think
of?
of?
Ethereum is definitely the one that's most commonly used. The issue with Ethereum is that it's a proof of work blockchain, which means that it takes a lot of work to earn the currency on the Ethereum blockchain. What happens is, in order to build the blocks onto which that information is stored, what's happening is there are computers that are solving meaningless algorithms.
Yeah.
And as those algorithms are solved, the next block is created and the solver receives the compensation of Ethereum. So in order to earn a lot of Ethereum, you have more computers. And the more computers you have, the more energy you're using. And so what's happened is that over time, that has been centralized into large warehouses of computers using lots of energy and lots of resources in order to continue to earn the Ethereum on that blockchain. There are other types of blockchains. And again, this is just super scratched the surface because
Yeah.
there are a lot of details within each word
Yes.
that I'm saying.
Yes. Thank you for simplifying it, though. I appreciate that.
Well, hopefully it's simplified.
I appreciate that. Hopefully people listening appreciate that too, but I certainly do.
So the other type of blockchain is a proof of stake blockchain. And rather than doing work, meaning, again, to solve those meaningless algorithms in order to earn currency, for proof of stake, you're essentially investing in the blockchain and then receiving those algorithms to solve. So it's less of a competition and more of a collective building. So in turn, that uses a lot fewer resources. You can run your baking system instead of mining system on a laptop rather than a huge computer farm. So it's a different way of looking at this idea of decentralization and storing information in multiple locations and verifying those transactions.
Can you only use Ethereum currency on the Ethereum blockchain?
So this is really one of the big questions about how the ecosystem is going to develop. Ethereum has definitely cornered the market in a lot of ways on transactions, on the financial transactions online. What other blockchains have done is build bridges to Ethereum in order to make use of the large marketplace that Ethereum has created. So you don't just buy things on the Ethereum network necessarily. You can exchange your currency for other currencies. And then other blockchains are creating ways for you to essentially lock up your assets on their chain and port them over to Ethereum.
Okay, so the answer is yes.
Sort
but
of.
Yes, but there are ways around it.
Yes. So if something is minted on Ethereum, you buy it with Ethereum, but there are many ways to get to Ethereum from other blockchains.
Okay, so you can use this Bitcoin that most people are talking about. Bitcoin,
Bitcoin you would exchange for Ethereum.
Yeah, you'd exchange and use it. Okay, so an NFT in art. The NFT is a digital something. It's something you can't touch. A digital.
It's a digital token.
Do you like my expertise on that? It's a digital something. I definitely couldn't do your work. So where does the NFT fall in all of this? Okay,
so the NFT is basically packaging. One of the things that has driven me crazy is that there's this reference to a smart contract. And so for all of those non-lawyers, or lawyers, I suppose, it's confusing for everybody. It's like, oh, a contract.
Yeah.
Not really. Not really. There's actually no contract there. It's metadata. So it's a code. It's computer code. Metadata that regulates transactions. So it'll have several if-then commands within that metadata that determines the way in which this token can be transferred and held. There aren't any nuances in the smart contract, and there aren't really any contractual terms. It's just transactional rules.
Yeah. So you could call it the smart rules. Doesn't even mean it's you could name it something different.
I have named it an armature instead. I prefer using the term armature because I feel like that more accurately describes what it is. It's a structure onto which you can hang many other things.
Okay.
So instead of thinking of it as this like high-tech thing that nobody can comprehend, I like to view NFTs more as empty cardboard boxes. It's packaging. It's packaging for whatever content you want to attach to the NFT.
That's the smart contract. That's what
right.
you're... Okay.
Right.
Okay, so I want to buy something. Give me an example of what an NFT is.
So this goes to what is it packaging, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got this ability to package something digitally. What is in it? And this, of course, also goes to the question of what are you buying when you buy an NFT? That metadata, that smart contract or that armature that makes up the NFT links to content that is stored on another decentralized server system. Generally speaking, that's on IPFS or Arweave or a number of other servers that you could store your content on, but those are the most common. That content can be anything. It could be a video file, it could be an image file, it could be music, it could be access to something, a ticket. It can be anything, right? Any kind of content you can imagine, but it's saved digitally and linked to the NFT, that token.
Okay. So for example, you said a ticket. So why wouldn't we do things like this is what comes up to me for so a ticket, I guess that would be a lot of work and energy to be if you had to do like, stadium tickets, tennis tickets, whatever it is, any kind of tickets, an airline ticket. The reason we wouldn't do it on that, or maybe someday we will, the reason we don't is because it's a lot of work to do that.
Well, there are a number of reasons. I mean, I think to back up a second, one of the questions to ask whenever someone, I get calls every week, every day, people with great ideas for things they want to make into NFTs.
Yeah.
And one of my first questions is, well, why? Why would you want to put it onto the blockchain? Why do you want to create an NFT if it works already, in a traditional medium?
And when you say, why do you want to create the NFT? Why do you want to make it digital? And why do you want to make it hard to get? Why do you want to make it an original?
It's not just digital, right? It's digital on the blockchain. So digital has existed for a long time now.
Right.
But this is putting something onto the blockchain. And one of the ways
meaning it's secure, meaning it's one of a kind.
Meaning that the content, the information is decentralized and stored in many networks, many computers over a network. Mm-hmm. So the question is, why do you want that? Like, is there a reason to focus on the authenticity of something or the provenance of something? We can talk about why those things don't necessarily work currently on in the current NFT ecosystem. But one of the other things that has been a big selling point for NFTs is the scarcity, right? So the idea being you're taking something, a digital something that otherwise is easily copied without distinction, and you're making it scarce. You're making it unique and unusual and something that people want to attribute value to and purchase. And the way that happens is by creating that NFT. So each NFT is connected to the blockchain. And when it's registered on the blockchain, it receives a hash or an identifying number. Mm-hmm. That's a unique number. Only one NFT has that number. And then the NFT is linked to content on, let's say, IPFS. Mm-hmm. So you've got this package of digital pieces that together make up that NFT and make it unique. So the ability to make something unique, scarce, and secure can be very helpful in certain situations. Now, why do you want to put something on the blockchain is the question. And it may be that at some point, all sorts of tickets and accesses will be stored on blockchain for security purposes, for ease of transaction, for any number of other reasons. At this point, though, there still does need to be the question of why, because the entire ecosystem is young, it's evolving, and there are a lot of steps and challenges. I always talk about how still, even though things look like they're advancing super fast, and they are, a lot of it's still being held together with Band-Aids and bubblegum. You've got all these like off-chain solutions to make it look like this on-chain ecosystem is working seamlessly, which it is not. But so the idea that you have something scarce is really important. And then also thinking about why what it is you want to do makes sense to put on the blockchain. It's probably not going to be, at this point, it's not going to be one single ticket. It's going to be about building an interaction with the community.
Okay, so that brings me to, because you're talking about you being someone who puts something on the blockchain. Let's talk about the other side of it. If I'm someone who wants to buy something, buy an NFT, how do I know what I'm getting?
That's an excellent question.
Wow. How do I know? Because my kid called me the other day and he's like, how come I can't access more money in my account? And I'm like, what do you need it for? He's like, I'm going to buy this NFT. You're like, whoa, wait a second. This is like, what are you talking about? So how do you know? How does he know? How do I know that what he's getting, what any of us are getting, are of value?
I mean, it's a really interesting question. And certainly, value is determined in a number of different ways. You've got value in terms of marketplace value. So what is something selling for within a particular marketplace? You've got critical value. What are people saying about it? You've got long-term value and what that asset is going to gain over time, which is, of course, why the securities issues become quickly something that we have to be concerned about. And then you've got social value. So a lot of the profile picture projects, PFPs, like CryptoPunks and Bored Ape Yacht Club.
I hear that name a lot.
Right. So these are to be used as profile pictures, among other things. So there's social value. So you've got all these different values that people are looking at. And there's a scramble to create community around different projects and to create, a demand for those scarce assets.
So for example, CryptoPunks. That is a digital something. Digital. It's an NFT. Don't you love my lingo? Like, it's a thing. I feel like, did you ever see total sidebar here, but did you ever see the clip when the internet was kind of new and Katie Couric and Bryant Gumbel on the Today Show are tossing to someone to talk to them about the internet? Oh my God, you have to. It is so funny. Katie Couric's looking with this very puzzled look and Bryant Gumbel's looking at her and they're saying, there's this new thing out there. It's called the internet. It's like, I feel like that's where we're at with this. I'm going to be saying. We are. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are.
And what's interesting is that, we're those of us who've been working in this area for the last, look, it didn't really explode until a year ago. Mm-hmm. But, even a couple of years, you've been in it. You're an OG. You're like, you've been in it for a long time. And even for those of us who've been working in this area for a number of years, we're in a bubble. And so we think, well, everybody knows what NFTs are now, but that's absolutely not true. It's
absolutely
a mystery
not true
to so many people, right?
It's a mystery to so many people. Absolutely not true. And you mentioned that when this exploded. So what I think of, and maybe there's something else, but was that Beeple NFT that was it's called Every Days. And in 2007, this artist decided to create a piece of art every day for 5,000 pieces. So it's like over 10 years, and then put them all together on an NFT. So it looks like this big collage, and sold it for $69.3 million to one purchaser, to one owner. Was that shocking? It's like, in your world, were you like, whoa, what just happened?
Well, so blockchain's been around for a while. Mm-hmm. NFTs have been around for a while. And digital artists have been playing in this area for a number of years. So it's not like it came out of the blue for everybody, but it was still a pretty shocking sale.
Yeah, but nothing had ever sold like that before.
Correct.
Okay.
There had been a few high prices, but nothing like at that level. And that definitely, catapulted the whole question of what are NFTs and how do I get one, or, how do I make one?
Yeah, how do I make one and make that kind of money?
Exactly. Right into popular culture and into the mainstream media.
So tell me about some of the pieces that you work with. Because I know you're now doing some NFTs that have movement, that create things over the water, that have, they're really original. And they're things that couldn't be done. This is the other interesting part to me, is they're pieces that really couldn't happen in the old traditional way.
Well, okay. So I work with a number of different artists. I'm not actually making the pieces. I'm working with the artists or the teams that are creating the pieces, and then helping them to make sure that legally everything is in good shape. It is an interesting space because there aren't so many standards and protocols that have already been in place. Mm-hmm. So as a lawyer, it's fascinating to me to figure out those ways that I can get involved in creating real contracts around this and protecting artists' rights. So it's a little bit of an expanded role.
You're trying to like break down the decentralization part of it. You're like,
part of the problem is that this whole metaverse is being driven by, teenage libertarians. Yeah. People who don't want any rules. Everybody owns everything. And there is something interesting about the whole Web3 ethos. That is another podcast, not for today.
Okay. Ooh.
There is something really interesting there. But ultimately, we can't operate in a system that has no rules. So those rules are coming, and they're being brought in by lawyers, by regulatory agencies, by governments. There needs to be a structure there that people can work within reliably. And I totally lost track of the thread.
Sorry, because I interrupted you completely. So I was asking about the work that you do. I just went right in there. Sorry. The work you do.
So, the work that I've been supporting and the artists who I work with, they've been working in digital media for a long time. So the work itself, the content has existed and continues to evolve on its own, but the ability to package it as an NFT is what's sort of new. Mm-hmm. So one artist I work with, Nancy Baker Cahill, who is absolutely brilliant and extraordinary. Her work is subversive and advocates for social justice and a number of other things that are important, to her. And what she's done is create augmented reality installations, augmented reality pieces or virtual reality pieces. And those are, you can access them through an app that she's created, and you essentially have access to see these virtual reality, augmented reality works in that medium, on your phone or your iPad. You can create a video capture of that. She has created video captures, or she's taken the works themselves and created different backgrounds. And then those files become assets that can then be packaged through the NFT process and sold. And they can be sold as, one of ones, a limited edition of one, mm-hmm. or, one of five, if there are five that are produced. So what it does is it gives somebody like Nancy the ability to take work that otherwise would be installation, public facing. It would need to be commissioned and paid for ahead of time. It gives her a tool to create something that can actually be sold. Mm-hmm. One of the big benefits as well, and this is something that also, right after everyone got all excited about the amount of money that people made on his sale, one of the other things that became so incredibly important is the idea of resale royalties. So it's also, NFTs have allowed for the incorporation of resale royalties, which is something that artists in the traditional art world have been fighting for years. It's incorporated digitally into the entire process. It's problematic at the moment, not completely reliable, but it has brought those kinds of issues right back to the forefront, and artists now have a little bit more power to be insisting on these tools and rights to be implemented.
What part of it is problematic? What do you mean?
So back to the cake analogy. Mm-hmm. Think of the resale royalties as the candles on top of the cake. Mm-hmm. So you've got your cake in the kitchen, you light the candles. As you walk into the dining room, the candles go out because of the wind that's created in that transition. Same thing goes for NFTs. You have the resale royalties associated with the NFTs. They're not embedded in the smart contract or structure of the NFT itself. It's layered on top. And when it goes from one platform to another, oftentimes the next platform doesn't recognize the terms of those resale royalties. Okay. So it's like the candles being blown out as it transitions to another platform.
So what do? You come in and you put those sparking candles that whenever they is that what you do?
That's exactly what we need. And that's actually, in some ways, that's actually what's happening. But we have
they light up again?
Yeah, I mean, the solution isn't quite as elegant as self-lighting candles yet. Yeah. But what we do have is some really innovative ways that people are creating separate wallets and separate contracts that can be recognized on different platforms. The problem is we still have some complications in terms of where do those resale royalties go? How are they then divided amongst the parties who want to split them? And it's being worked out. What I do as a lawyer is I think about the problems with the rights issues, right?
Okay.
So when you buy an NFT, you buy the content that is associated with that NFT, but you don't get any rights unless you're expressly given those rights. So the copyright law that has existed prior to NFTs still exists. It still applies. NFTs might be in the metaverse, but they are still, within our realm of reality. They're still on Earth. They're still on this planet. So intellectual property rules still apply. And that's where people get a little bit confused and things start to get a little bit muddled. And you can start to see the impact of this Web3 ethos of everybody sharing in the ability to use everything and create everything and own everything, it doesn't work so well. So you still have creators who maintain their intellectual property, even if it's sold through an NFT. And the people that buy the NFT don't buy anything except for that content, unless, again, they're told that they can do something with it. Some platforms, some projects have expressly said that the content of the NFT can be used for commercial purposes up to a certain amount of money. The question there is, how do you enforce that? So those are the kinds of questions that the lawyers are looking at.
Yeah.
What rights are transferring? How do you enforce those rights? What do? How do you make sure that those rights travel with the NFT rather than dissipating into the ether as those transactions happen? And there are a number of different relatively clunky solutions right now, but it is going to become more streamlined over time.
Yeah. So if I buy something, what can I do with it?
I'm going to give you the ultimate lawyer answer.
Yeah.
It depends.
Okay.
Sort of like your something.
35 minutes into it and we get, it depends. No, you know what? Okay, that's good. I'm glad you stayed true to the profession. Now give us the friendly answer. What can I do? If I tell you I just bought something, I don't know, what can I put it on a t-shirt?
Probably not.
Oh.
But so here's what you need to do. And this is something that your son should be doing when he's going to purchase his NFTs.
Yeah.
Do a little bit of due diligence before you buy something. If you're buying it off of, let's say, OpenSea, which is one of the most popular marketplaces, there's a way to look at the attributes to see if there are any additional terms that are linked to it. And that's something that's becoming more common as people become more aware of the fact that, we need to have these rights articulated. If you're buying it from a marketplace, a platform, like you've gone to a website to participate in a particular project or drop, there may be terms and conditions on that website. There are also terms and conditions on OpenSea, but they're generalized to the entire marketplace rather than to each specific NFT. So terms and conditions that exist on the website from which you purchase the NFT would be one place to look for rules that are pertaining to that NFT.
Okay.
That's where you might find the rules, say, for Bored Ape Yacht Club, where it says, you can use the NFTs that you purchase for anything that you want to do. You can't use their logo, but you can use your NFT. So there are some parameters around it. There are other projects that will put parameters in there saying, you can't use it you can't associate it with anything that is racist or violent, or there are going to be some parameters that they don't want you to cross. Mm-hmm. So terms and conditions would be one place. Mm-hmm. The other place would be frequently asked questions sections. Will sometimes give you a clearer outline of what is being sold with the NFT and what's not. So sometimes they'll even have a section that says, "What can I do with this NFT?" and it'll explain it there. This is where the lawyers come in. Well, the lawyers come in certainly at the terms of service or terms and conditions for the site in general. But lawyers also can come in at the stage of writing up an actual contract or writing up an articulation of terms to be associated with that NFT that gets attached to the NFT in the same way that the content gets attached.
Oh, okay.
So within the metadata of the NFT, you can not only have a link to the content for that NFT, but also to additional terms that apply. And then it will travel with the NFT.
Okay.
The question then becomes, who's actually looking at the metadata that closely that they go and check everything out?
You. I bet you are.
Yes, I try. And I tell my clients to.
Yeah, that's you that comes. I'm hiring you to do that. Okay. So those are some very firm things that we should look for then if we're going to buy an NFT. It's really in those terms and conditions and then the frequently asked questions and if there are any attachments to it.
Absolutely.
To see what's there. Okay.
Now, one of the issues with that, of course, is that in order to have an actual contract, there has to be what's called a meeting of the minds. And so even in the software industry, back in the 90s when we had the dot-com boom, which some of us are old enough to remember, there was the emergence of click wrap licensing, where you click to agree to the terms of that software license. using similar concepts here, we need to have some sort of click-through process that becomes universal and adopted on all platforms, because as it stands now, nobody's making an affirmative agreement to abide by the terms. Everybody's just saying, if you come to my website and if you purchase or decide to play on my website, you are agreeing to the terms. And that's not necessarily something that would be upheld in court.
So what are the biggest worries as a consumer if you go into this? Okay, I get it. I'm going to look at the terms. I get that this whole thing is still kind of working itself out. There's a lot that isn't there right now. But what do I need to be concerned about so that I don't really get ripped off? Like, is there something that you see that's a red flag and you go, yeah, no, not doing it there? Is it the marketplace? Because how do you find them anyway?
That's a whole lot of questions.
Yeah,
all
I know.
Wrapped
I threw
up
everything
into that
there.
one breath.
Yeah, but you're super smart, so you take
See
it.
if we can tease some things
I'm
out
throwing
here.
that out to you. Okay, the first question is, how do I know I'm not getting ripped off?
Okay, that is tough.
Even for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I will tell you right up front, I don't collect NFTs. I have a few NFTs that I've bought sort of as experiments to try to figure out how the system works and to understand that better. The amount of time that people who are really into collecting NFTs, the amount of time that they take to research things and to figure out what to buy next is incredible. The amount of time on Twitter and Discord, those are the two main avenues for conversation and information being disseminated. It's really incredible. And there's no way that I could be a thoughtful NFT collector and a lawyer at the same time. There seem to be some out there that manage, but it's a lot of time.
But there must be a place where you say, I would not buy that. Or you may say to your artist, I would not put your NFT there.
Yeah, I mean, each project is sort of project specific, and you have to pay attention to what's the best way to package something and present it. And that goes back to marketplace. So who, as a creator, who's your audience? Who's your market? Who's going to buy this stuff? And trying to figure that out from the standpoint of how do you put it together and where do you advertise it, market it, and drop it? From the standpoint of a consumer, I mean, it could be that you hear things from friends and people are getting excited about something and you go look at it and it looks kind of cool. And so you buy it. A lot of these NFTs are very low cost, especially if they're on non-Ethereum blockchains. Ethereum is going to have more expense because of the costs that we talked about before. And that leads to something called gas, which is the cost it takes to mint something on Ethereum. So Ethereum-based assets are going to be a little bit more. Other blockchains are going to be a little bit less. The proof-of-stake chains, because they're so inexpensive to run, it tends to be pennies in order to mint something. So you can legitimately sell something for $10 on a proof-of-stake chain versus Ethereum, where you're looking at, $100 in gas fees before you even talk about the cost of the asset. So looking at costs, I would say for people who are starting off, take the low risk ones. Don't go spend, $100,000 on something. But it really comes down to walking through the process from the beginning. The first thing is, of course, you have to set up a wallet. So making sure that you set up a wallet that is a legitimate wallet, that's relatively secure in the space. There are many different wallets out there. Depending on which cryptocurrency you're going to be using, you may need to have one kind of wallet or another. So maybe if you're doing Ethereum-based transactions, you have a MetaMask wallet. If you're working with Tezos, which is one of the proof-of-stake chains, you have a Kukai wallet. So there are different types of wallets that you have. Then there's the question of, are you buying cryptocurrency in order to do your transactions, or are you engaging with projects that allow you to buy with dollars? And the way that works, it's also referred to as fiat because obviously it's dollars or any other actual currency. The way that works is that you usually use your credit card to purchase something, and that gets transacted then on the back end, right? So the platform that's taking your dollars runs it through a payment system. They take the dollars, turn it into cryptocurrency, mint the asset, and then drop the asset into your wallet. Obviously, this is something that there are many stages at which it could fall apart. You can get ripped off. People don't know what they're doing. Sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes it's not intentional. But, that's where supposedly having everything registered on the blockchain should provide some sort of security.
So if I buy an NFT, I don't want to spend a lot of money. I just want to kind of be curious and see what happens in this space. I spend $10, $100 on something. Can I resell it? Is that hard to do? Is this something you buy and you hold forever?
Well, two questions there, right?
I have a problem, don't I? I just keep asking you multiple questions. It's this whole world. It's so there's so many questions I have.
Full of questions. So, which is why we keep going off on all these different tangents.
It's all good. I'm actually following you very well.
Oh, good. Well, at least as long as we're understanding each other, we're all good.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm getting a lot in here.
So, one of the main tenets of NFTs is the idea that you can transact business, right? You can buy them and then you can resell them. This is where the resale royalties come in. Every time you resell, if there's a resale royalty built in, X percent, somewhere between 10 and 15, sometimes 20, but that's getting kind of high, will go back to the creator. So you've got this resale royalty that's built in, and whatever the gross transaction price is, that will come out. So yes, normally speaking, yes. However, I will say that you can certainly have a coder create an NFT that's not transactable, that you can't then transact.
Oh.
And in fact, there was a project where tokens were put into people's wallets that were not able to be moved out. And some of these projects, what you'll see is that the artists are playing with the idea of transactability. And what you start to realize is that as a consumer, you don't really have any control or ability to know what's built into that smart contract or that NFT.
So how would I know that? If I buy something, would I know that it's non-transactable once I buy it?
So
where am I finding that?
So for most people, it's not going to be beneficial for them to create a token that you can't move out of your wallet once you buy it, right? The idea is that they want it to be transacted a lot so that there are resale royalties generated and you've got a stream of income that continues.
Right.
Sometimes, you could think of a legitimate reason why you wouldn't want it to be transacted. If it's a special benefit that I want to give to you and I'm dropping it in your wallet in an NFT, package, and I only want it for you. I just want Alita to be able to access this VIP event or redeem it for a particular something. Then I wouldn't want you to sell it. In other cases, betas, if you're doing a test to see whether the engagement with the community is the way you want it to go, maybe you don't want people putting it on the marketplace. You're just seeing what that initial community building potential this project has. So there are legitimate reasons why you would want a token to not be transferable.
Where would I find that, though, if I'm buying it?
Well,
in the terms and conditions?
Hopefully it would be spelled out very clearly when you go to buy it.
Yeah.
And so that would be something that you would be well aware of before you purchased it.
Yeah.
Most tokens, however, the pile of tokens that are out there to buy, the huge number of NFTs that are on the market, they're all transactable. The question is going to be for you, are you buying something that's Ethereum based and then only, transactable within the Ethereum environment? Are you buying something on Tezos or Polygon or, any number of other blockchains? And if so, what's the marketplace for that? Algorand is a fantastic blockchain, super intelligently constructed, really interesting projects. But the secondary marketplace is still, a little wobbly, it's not quite there yet. So different blockchains have built out their capacities within the marketplace at different rates and in different ways. That's still working itself out.
It sounds like there's a lot still working itself out.
Indeed, still early days. So if you're feeling like you missed the boat, you haven't.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking about this for months because we wanted to do this podcast. But where do you, and you, even when you walked in today, you go, "Oh, I'm so glad we're talking today because so much has changed in the last." So where do you see this heading? It sounds to me like it's here to stay.
It's definitely here to stay. What it's going to look like a year or two from now is definitely a question, and a fun question. What we're seeing now that I would say is very different from a few months ago is that people are really starting to understand the importance of rights and the importance of the articulation of those rights in enforceable documents. Thinking through projects in terms of the impact that they're going to have down the road instead of just trying to hit some ideal scenario. Like, these things are starting to actually make a difference and be meaningful because there's litigation starting. And I knew it, like, last year, as soon as the Beeple sale hit, I was like, yay, this is so exciting. Oh my God, there's an avalanche of litigation coming. So we are definitely seeing some of those lawsuits, and that's going to start to create some law and some basis on which to make the next decisions, which is I suppose the upside of litigation. And then there's also the regulatory issues. Governments are starting to be concerned about cryptocurrencies. How are they treated? What's their relationship to fiat currencies? What about securities regulations, consumer protection issues? What about the intellectual property? So there's all kinds of different regulatory bodies taking a hard look at this ecosystem, and there will be regulations coming as well.
Wow. All right. Well, that sounds to me like a podcast in 6 months, so we can see what's happened. You
know that the way things move within the metaverse, like 2 months is the equivalent of about 10 years. So we might want to do.
Oh, wow. Okay. Are you okay with that? You're going to come back often, right?
Every day.
Okay. Excellent. Sarah Odenkirk, thank you so much for taking the time to explain all of this to us. I certainly got a huge education today, and I'm sure people listening did as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to speak with you.